not just in his life, in everybody surrounding.
And to reiterate, they are being hard-pressed to find anything wrong, and they keep trying. We went down, like I said, to Wichita, and I wasn't real happy with this lady, but, she probably had a lot of patients stacked up. But we have to make another appointment for, she's worried about
The size of his head.
the size of his head. So we called back at a pediatrician appointment. We went to 2 weeks previous and got the head measurement, and he'd grown quite a bit. But she was just dead set on, well, he should be at this. And I told them, when they took those measurements, and Nita, you might know this, they didn't do that at Hayes. They were trying to save his life. They didn't take those measurements until they got down to Wichita. By that time, he was swollen up. And so his head measurement was like 15 and a half.
Inches.
And he measured 14 3/4 at this appointment. But, he had, the swelling had come down. And then we had a measurement 2 weeks previous, and then a measurement last Thursday, and he'd grown since that 2 weeks.
By our measurement.
So now we get to go down there again just to suffice this lady. And I just get the feeling that they just aren't letting this go. I mean, they're just going to keep, let's try to find something. Good luck, because they're not.
They just can't believe that nothing's wrong.
That's
because
the
it doesn't
impression
make
we're
it.
getting.
And that's it's an interesting point that you make that, because if they can't believe nothing's wrong, something should have been wrong. And if nothing's wrong and it should have been wrong, God's hand was involved.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And so I don't know if we're dealing with unbelievers or just the fact that everybody that walks in that door has an issue that can be seen, and they're trying to find something.
Could be.
That's the impression I get, and I'm not worried about it one bit. We'll go down there. We'll prove her wrong again.
Stay in
and
a
if she
hotel.
wants to make another appointment, we'll go ahead and do it. Whatever.
Boy, you're nice.
I bit my tongue this last time. And you know me well enough. That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And but it's in the child's best interest. And when it gets to be too much, I'll let her know.
That's good. Well, thank you guys for sharing. Let's thank them for sharing with us. I know that wasn't easy. When we see, I'm going to take just a couple minutes here, not very long. When we see something bad happen, the first question we're tempted to ask is, why did it happen? Because our lives generally flow fairly smoothly. And then we hit a bump, we hit a dip, and the car jars. And we think, why did that happen? That's the first question that most people ask when there's a death, or when there's an injury, or an illness, or a negative circumstance of any kind. The answer to that question is very easy. We live in a broken world. Denise is wonderful, but her body's not perfect. Elijah's wonderful, but his body's not perfect. We're made out of imperfect stuff now. We were perfect in our creation, but we're not perfect anymore, and bad stuff happens to imperfect things. So the question shouldn't be, why did this happen? The question should be, why doesn't this happen more often? Why doesn't every baby come out with problems? If you understood, and I don't all the way, but if you understood the complexity of the human body and the complexity of, forget the human body, a complexity of a microscopic, amoeba, we'd think, why does life work at all? So rather than asking, why did this happen, we need to ask, why doesn't it happen more often? And the answer to that is because God is with us. And He does amazing things. There were two big forces involved. Satan was involved in this too, not just the fallen world. And like his normal behavior, he attacked an innocent child and a good family. He also prompted the doctors through fear of lawsuit to give bad reports. Have you ever noticed that? Doctors always telling you worst case scenario so that if it's better than that, you feel good. And so they don't give you a medium report and it's bad and then they get sued for something. And so I'm not saying doctors are bad in that, but it's not a godly thing that prompts them to give worst case scenarios. But constantly trying to tell them things aren't going to be good, things aren't going to work out. Not only that, but as Jarrod mentioned, constantly feeling the fear, the temptation to give in to fear and to not have faith and to not trust God. Satan was very involved. But God was involved too. God gave the two of them friends, gave them words of encouragement through text messages. See, technology can be used for something good. Some things. And He also gave them the Word, the Bible. If you have a Bible sitting in your lap, grab it real fast. Don't open it. Just hold on. Just put your hand on it. That book. I didn't bring my phone with me. Battery was dead. My other Bible's back there. That book in your hand contains the promises of God. And the Bible says when you combine the Word with faith, things happen. You become a new believer. You become a new creation. You receive the blessings that God has planned for you, and you receive His will for your life. So He gave them the Word through text messages, through the reading plan, through various friends. And I think what was most fascinating to me, I didn't know this part of the story. I knew that God had gave Denise a vision of a little boy running across the grass. I didn't know it was before you knew you were pregnant. All that time before, she just had this vision of a little boy running. Didn't even know that she was carrying. Were you actually pregnant at the time? Oh, you weren't? Okay. Okay. I was just curious. But, and that, well, that's kind of weird. If he turns out to be brown-headed, I'm going to be very disappointed that you missed God. Sorry. But, He gave her this vision, and she didn't know what it was for. She didn't know what it meant. But she didn't forget it. And then when the time came, God reminded her of that vision and said, remember, I gave you a promise. I told you something. That's called a rhema word, for those of you who don't know. It's not the written word. It came from God directly. But it was ahead of time. He was preparing the way. He knew the dates and times of the right people being in the right places and put everything in place so that even though the devil would attack that child, God wasn't going to let it be destroyed. And by the word, by the words of encouragement, by their own confession, and by faith in God's vision, it chased the darkness away. I love what Jarrod said, that when she reminded him of that vision, he said, just turn a corner. All of a sudden, it was like, man, that's right. I don't have to be afraid. And it chased the darkness out of his head. But not only that, God brought them together. And I like how you commented that gave you immense strength. It's amazing what that can do. Satan attacked because he will. He always does, always has, and always will. But they held on. And I praise God for that. And I'm really looking forward to watching Elijah grow up. I also believe that his name is prophetic. But we'll talk about that when he's 10 and causing trouble. He's not turning my heart towards my father, I'll tell you that right now. Now, I won't speak evil over your child, but we know Jarrod, so... I want to share one more thing. This is something that God gave me not long before this happened. And I shared it with Denise, and it really helped her, and I want to clarify it with you guys. She mentioned about not having faith in the circumstance or in the doctors. We're not supposed to look at the circumstances. When bad things are happening, we're supposed to have faith in God's promises, not on what we see with our eyes. But when things start going good, somehow we forget that we're not supposed to be looking at the circumstances, and we go, oh, well, the doctor said it's okay. And then we put our faith in this, and then it turns out not okay. Because your faith can't be on anything but God and His promises. It has to be there, because if it's anywhere else, it's misplaced. There's a lot of people in this world with positive attitudes, and they're not living successful lives. Because their positive attitude is in themselves or in something, I don't know. Got to get pretty creative if you don't have God. But when we face circumstances that are negative and we get a positive report, I remember talking to somebody not too long ago about the economy, and he said, he had been pretty upset about the downturn. It had ruined part of his business. And he said, well, I'm not too worried. The economy's getting better. I said, oh, buddy, you don't get it, do you? I said, it doesn't have anything to do with the economy, man. Don't put your faith in the positive reports from the economists. They got us in the mess in the first place. Put your faith in God, not on your circumstances. Are there any questions for the two of them that you want to ask? Any other thoughts? Okay. I want to thank the two of you for sharing. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yep. Hey, I'm with you, Jarrod. I know what you mean. Yes. In what? Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Sometimes when you're praying for something and it happens, it's easy to, the next time you need to pray for something, to say, well, I know it's going to work because it worked before. That is a faith in a circumstance as well. Now, to a degree, you're having faith in God doing it before, but you have to remember that it's not even that it worked before that produces the results. It's faith that God, it's faith in God's character. It's believing that God is who He says He is. Because He said He's a good God. He said He doesn't renege on His promises. He says that what He says in His Word is true. And when we put faith in that, we get results.